Welcome back, everybody, to Vendetta Sports Media's NBA previews. I'm Jerry Walker, and alongside me today is Jarrod Prosser. And we're going to be talking to you guys about the Houston Rockets. Not a great season last year, honestly. One of the rougher teams to follow. Jarrod, I'll let you get into it. How'd the Rockets do last year?
Yeah, not a good season, but completely by design. This is a side that for quite a few years with James Harden and, nominate whichever other superstar was playing alongside him for that year, always came close, but always seemed to run into either the Warriors or run into a rake that hit them sideshow Bob style. So they've embraced the rebuild and they've embraced the rebuild hard. This is a team that is chock full of young talent. But last season, 20 wins, last in division, last in the conference, earned them another top three pick. Um, Last season, again, this was by design. They weren't supposed to win games. It was all about development. And Jalen Green, the prized number 2 pick from the previous draft, started the season badly, but by the end of the season, looks like a real prospect. He looked superb after a pretty awful start. The other youngsters, Usman Garuba aside, did show some promise when in the minutes that they played. And ultimately, as I mentioned, their poor form earned them another top 3 pick, which they used to find potentially the perfect foil to Green and Alperen Şengün in Jabari Smith Jr. So, yeah, not a good season in the wins column, but everything else pretty much went to plan for Houston.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that kind of leads us into the next thing. What off-season moves did the Kings or the Rockets
The
make
Rockets.
minus the Jabari
Well,
Smith drafting?
yeah, well, it is all about the draft yet again. I mean, they had 4 first-round draft picks last year. It was 3 this year. And they picked up Jabari Smith at the 3. He's never going to be a number 1 option, but he could be an absolutely elite number 2. 6'10", sky-high release. Just a gorgeous form on that jump shot. And an excellent defender. He's a genuine, very, very good two-way player. There will be all-star games in that man's future. I put my house on it. They also picked up Tari Eason, who is this massive ball of energy. He's like a Tassie Devil out there. If he ever develops a jump shot, he could be something else. And Ty Washington, who, for me, like, I'm not a huge Ty fan, but him slipping to, I think it was pick 29, pick 30 that they got him, that was almost inexcusable. I thought he should have been picked up 20 to 22 range. Very, very quick guard. And he gives Houston something they don't have, which is a genuine floor general. For everything that Kevin Porter Jr. can do, he is a shooting guard masquerading as a point. So Washington is his development could be really important for Houston in the long run. As far as the players they got rid of, realistically, there was actually, before we get into that, they did pick up some players on the fringes. Mo Harkless, who moved to every team this offseason. Teo Maladon, Derek Favors will play a little bit. But ultimately, they're end of the bench players. As far as the outs, Christian Wood was a big one. An early off-season trade, to the Mavericks for a first-round pick and assorted flotsam and jetsam, some of which has already been released or moved on in the trade with OKC. Moving Wood is a clear sign that Houston are going to lean on Şengün pretty heavily this season. He's apparently grown a couple of inches. He's not slightly undersized at 6'9". He's a genuine 6'11" now, if NBA measurements are to be believed. And the team also released John Wall, which was pretty much inevitable. They'd asked him to stay home for a year and a half, so that was just a case of waiting for the contract to wind down.
But yeah, I mean, I was still on if you don't mind going back to talk about Jabari Smith, because I think he was in the conversation for being the top overall pick for a short period of time there, at least.
I think that was Orlando's smoke screening. The more I look back at it, I think that was a case of Orlando, and I don't know why. Orlando had the number 1 pick. They didn't need to smoke screen anyone, but I think they had their sights set on Banchero right from the start. That said, you could make a case for any of the top 3 in this draft being the number 1 pick. They're all very different types of players, but they're all very, very good basketballers.
Yeah,
If you look at the three of them, I think Smith probably has the lowest ceiling of the three, but he's certainly got the highest floor.
yeah, absolutely. I have a feeling that I thought Jabari Smith was going to go second. I had a feeling they were going to end up taking, um, oh man, who's the white? Chet Holmgren.
Chet, yeah.
But I'm not bought in on him. I feel like Jabari Smith would be a better fit and a better player. But
I love Chet's skill set, but and we've already seen it. He's out for the season already. Chet's body worries me.
yeah,
I honestly think there's going to be a Yao Ming career progression for Chet where he's going to be awesome up until he's about 28, and then he's going to drop off a cliff. If you look at Yao, he was done by the time he was 26 as a full-time superstar. He barely played by the time he was 28, and he officially retired at 30. I don't think Chet's going to be as bad as Yao, but at the same time, I don't see a long career for Chet. And yeah, in that sense, Smith is more of a sure thing.
and I think
Chet's ceiling could be much higher though.
yeah, I think the Rockets kind of maybe dodged a bullet to an extent if what we've seen with Chet goes on throughout his career by getting him at the three. But
Yeah,
besides Jabari, the Rockets not a there's a few players who you could say are their key players this year. It's kind of hard to just specific pull one out. So
yeah.
who do you have as the Rockets' key player for the upcoming season?
Well, there's about 5 guys who could be key players in 2026 for them. But as you said, it's tough with a 20-win team that is deliberately as bad as this to pick out a star man. But I'm going to go for Jalen Green purely off the back end of last season. My God, he was horrible in that first 6 weeks of his rookie campaign. Just terrible efficiency. The turnover numbers were awful, and he seemed to oscillate between going 1,000 miles an hour and trying to force everything and just running into brick walls, or being really timid and not reading what was in front of him and almost turning the ball over by inaction. The injury that he got in, I think it was late November, that kept him out for around a month, turned out to be a godsend. Once he came back at around Christmas, he was a different player. Honestly, he must have spent that month in the video room with assistant coaches, just running through sets, learning tendencies of players and that sort of thing. He came out looking so much calmer. He didn't rush his decision making. He knew that he was faster than 98% of the players in the league. And that speed and athleticism, he just started to waltz to the hole. That gave him enough space for his jump shot to drop. It was chalk and cheese. If he can, and look, there was probably going to be some sort of sophomore slump there, but I honestly think that the second half of his season was just as good as any of the other big 3 rookies in that class, as Barnes, Mobley, or Cunningham. And for all of the talent in that top 4 of the draft, and I think all 4 of them will be many, many all-star games for those 4. I think Green's the only one with the capability to lead the league in scoring. He is that explosive. Just a wonderful offensive player. So I think there will be a little bit of, as much as there is a chance of some sophomore slump in there, I think with a bit more talent around him and with a bit more assurity, I think there'll be a little bit of incremental progression in this season as well.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And I mean, he as bad as he started out the season, he came back from that injury and he ended up finishing 4th in the Rookie of the Year voting. Just shows how highly respected and how good he was actually playing as a rookie. Average 7.
And he would have been outside the top 10 a month in. He was that bad.
Yeah, it was night and day before and after that injury. So it's going to be really, really exciting to see what he has to do in his sophomore season, as long as he doesn't get into that sophomore slump. But moving on a little bit, who's that X factor for the Rockets? If it's necessarily a player or an idea or a situation, what do you have as that X factor?
Yeah, I struggle with this one. I mean, who or what is the X factor for this team? There is literally no pressure on the Rockets to win basketball games in 2023. So, there's no jeopardy to inhibit them. And for that, finding an X factor out of that was quite difficult. It's all about, they've got this phalanx of youngsters and it's all about their development. So perhaps that is the only issue. If Green, if he goes backwards, if he goes back to that early rookie season form, if, Şengün will give you a fair bit on offense. He's silky at that end, but if he gets lit up so much on D that his offense doesn't matter, if Smith can't generate his own shot, if Eason is nothing more than an energy guy, the dime a dozen energy guy that you can find off the bench, if Tai isn't strong enough, isn't quick enough to penetrate the paint, I have a lot of faith in Houston's GM, Rafa Stone. I think Raphael Stone's a very patient GM, but their owner, Tillman Fertitta, notoriously impatient. So if really, this is a bit of a doomsday scenario, but if all of these guys, regress from whatever their expectations are at the start of this season, I don't think Stone will panic, but will Fertitta. That might be the only X factor for this team, is how does their, slightly combustible owner react to a bad year?
Yeah, because it could very well be another bad year. But one player I've thought of as potentially being an X factor, and I want to get your thoughts on this, Kevin Porter Jr., because he didn't have a superb year last year, but he played 61 games, started all 61 as their point guard. So he's kind of just in there, and he had some decent numbers. But what do you think of Kevin Porter and how he'll do this season?
I think, look, he's been given the ultimate green light. And I think this is where Ty Washington is so important, because Porter isn't a point guard. I think his best case scenario is being that elite scorer off the bench for a contending side. And I think he's got that in him, because he can play a little bit of point and a little bit of two. You can say, hey, we need you to run offense, or we need you to be the offense. And he can do both. But if he's starting for your contending team, you're in trouble. I think having said that, he will start this season. Washington won't be ready. Teo Maledon is not an NBA starter. So he will start. He'll get pretty much the same stats, assuming his shooting stays the same. And he is an elite shooter. It's not spoken about often, but his catch and shoot numbers are top 3 or 4% of the league. It is absolutely brilliant, his jump shooting.
Yeah, he is.
So I honestly think he'll produce pretty similarly to last season. And I think that once Houston get better, he'll probably keep the same numbers, but I think it'll be in a different role.
It's good to know. Rockets fans, you may have a player who will be your starting point guard for a few years to come. But looking ahead at this season, are we going to see another tank season for the Rockets? What are your predictions for this upcoming season?
Oh, mate, the Rockets are Bart Simpson driving along the road in a tank singing Fleetwood Mac. Like, this team is so far in the tank that it's not even funny. They will suck, and they will suck by design once again. Lots of kids, they'll be given lots of minutes, lots of freedom to make mistakes. That will lead to some wonderful highlights and some tantalizing little glimpses of what this side could be, but it's not going to lead to a lot of winning. The Rockets will suck again, and they won 20 games last season. I'm going to tip them for 20 games on the dot again. And I think they will finish last in the conference once again. I think they will be worse than the Jazz.
You heard it here, Rockets fans.
But this isn't bad news.
Oh, no.
This isn't bad news. This is what the Rockets want. They are building towards something. They're on the right track.
Yeah, you got to start somewhere. The tank is in progress. Give it 2 or 3 years, maybe even a 4th, and you could have a contending team in some form or another. So you've heard it here. Jarrod, thank you as always. I'm Jerry.
My pleasure.
You guys can tweet at us. My Twitter handle is @JerryF007, and this is Jarrod Prosser. His Twitter handle is hey_it's_JP. Let us know what you think. Are the Rockets gonna be better this season? Not many people think so, but if you think so, let us know. Or do you think they'll actually be worse than they were last year? We want to hear what you have to say.
That'd be difficult.
That will be difficult. We want to hear what you guys have to say. Tweet at both of us. Have a good time, and we'll see you next time.